How does Acton teach writing? Uh, I love this question because I think it really, as I answer it, hopefully you'll see how our whole learning philosophy, our whole learning design is different than what most of us grew up with which is a traditional, way of going about learning. So think back to your time in school. You had written a paper and, put forth your effort and you pass it in and you get it back. And what do we see all over it? We see red marks, red pens, circles. I'm sure there was a grade, but the red marks. That's my early experience with writing. Not early, like all through my uh, learning career as a traditional learner. And it's kind of deflating. And so when I learned about writing at Acton, it just resonated with my soul and what makes sense to me for a young child. So some of the principles around writing is that we practice writing. Someone who writes a lot will become a great writer. The problem with that is if writing is not something that's enjoyable, they A, won't write a lot or any more than they have to, and B, they probably won't become a great writer because they won't feel confident and it will be boring. So one of my favorite writing programs I learned about when I was a homeschool mom is called Brave Writer. And one of her key principles is that let's not correct all of that. Let's not look at punctuation and grammar yet. Let's leave a space for young writers to express themselves and to be creative in their writing before we go bleeding onto their work, onto their creative work and their heart and their mind that they, with effort, put out into the world. Let's just give that space. And as they do that, this excitement for writing will grow. And Acton, we embody that as well. In the younger grades, we use Montessori learning, ages 4 to 8. They're using Montessori writing materials, which are really fantastic. Sometimes we start way too early, not we here, but in the world out there, we start with handwriting way too early when young children need to develop their pincher grip before they start writing. And so we have a lot of activities where they're doing that. They don't even know those are the muscles they're building, but they like pick something up and place it over here. But the way they pick it up is developing those muscles. So when they get to the actual forming of letters, it's not so actually physically painful, but they're also primed and ready to do it physically, from a physical standpoint. But then in the meantime, they're also being able to practice their writing in addition to their reading because they're using the movable alphabet. So if you don't know what a movable alphabet is, think of it kind of like those fridge magnets. We used to have the colorful fridge magnets all over. It's kind of like that, only it's set out in a box, the alphabet, and they use those to spell words. And the shape of them is just like you would form it, like a printed D or B. So they're getting familiar with all of those letters and sounds without actually having to form them, the pain of forming them as they're developing those physical muscles. So that's a little bit about that. We could go into it more, but on a broader perspective, the philosophy of writing, again, is that people who write and write a lot will become great writers. So at Acton, speaking more about the elementary studios and up, writing in Acton is about the process, not the product. So a more traditional mindset is that you're given an assignment and you write the paper and then you turn it in and then this is your product. You turn in a product and then you get a grade on it and maybe some scribbles and maybe some feedback. And then you're given another assignment and you create another product. We look at the important part of writing as the process. So often there'll be a challenge given, and then the process is that I write something, I produce something, and I do it like this because really writing is taking your thoughts and forming them in a way that you can share them. It is communicating. Writing is a communicative exercise. So you put your thoughts down And then you get feedback on that. So this happens much more intensely in the middle school studio, but I would have a running partner that I would ask for feedback on my writing. They would give me some critiques, and I would do the same for them. And then I'd go back to it, and I would create a second draft, and then a third draft, at least a third draft, and sometimes a fourth or fifth draft, because this process of putting our thoughts out and then refining them and then trying again and then refining them is not only a way to become an excellent writer without like the grade and the red marks on it, it's a way to become an excellent thinker and communicator. We learn to refine our communication as we get feedback on it, and in turn become great writers. So at some point, they do need the mechanics of writing, but it is much later here than in most places. So our first goal is that they love to write. They're given a lot of freedom to write and revise without a lot of red marks, without a lot of focus on the technical aspects of writing. And then in middle school, when they are more adept at typing and getting their thoughts out, and they're used to receiving feedback and refining their work, then we get more intentional, more focused on the conventions of writing, because they're also just able to integrate them into their writing more seamlessly. And a lot of time when they're writing, drafting, they'll do that anyway. As they read a lot, they will also start to integrate those conventions into their writing, a lot of times without even knowing it. But that's when we start to care about the form and function. They talk, they'll choose a writing with one of, voice, for instance, and they'll focus on their voice. And instead of getting feedback on every aspect of their writing, they'll just maybe get some feedback about the voice of that piece and really focus on developing that. So it's a smaller focus, more intentional in the process of writing, not the product. And the end of that is a really great product, a product that you've gotten feedback on. And the very end of the journey, when we have heroes that are in high school, is they have serious need to write excellently, because they are sending letters to people they admire and want to, I shouldn't say letters, I was so old school, emails likely, to people they want to do an apprenticeship with, someone they respect and admire, and they're asking for something back from them. So they better have a well-written letter, and it better have good grammar, and it better be formulated in a way that makes sense, and it's clear and crisp and concise. And they go through this same drafting process until their running partner says it's approved, and then it's greenlit to be sent out. So as I've been reviewing just this last year college essays, I am blown away with how excellent they are. I don't have to look at them. Some of them just ask me for a critique, because it's part of their toolbox to produce something excellent. They know they need a critique. It's second nature. But they've already asked for critiques from other people, probably 3 or 4 before it gets to me. So half the time I'm just blown away. I might have a few structural things to offer, but they don't need much, and they're excellent writers. I just wanted to share this as I was explaining all of this. Just yesterday, I got an email in my inbox from my youngest child. He's 10, and this was his session email. And the process he went through is to write basically a thank you letter for going to Acton. It's one of the studio writing opportunities that they have in the elementary school. And I only see the end product. But my 10-year-old sent me a well-written letter with examples and specific gratitude and correct spelling and a heartfelt thank you, because he took on the challenge of writing it and had started and drafted and got feedback and drafted until it was ready to send. And I don't know how many drafts he did, but talk about a skill that is beyond, I mean, that opens up any door. Now, I'm just his mom, and obviously I was touched by it, but wow. I know he's 10 years old. I know he could write a letter like that. He followed a formula. We give them the tool, the formula. This is how a well-written letter looks. Of course we do. Does yours look like this? We give excellent examples. That kid can write his ticket because he can write. He knows how to he knows how to go through the process to get an excellent product. And he knows how to communicate what he's trying to communicate. So that's how we do writing at Acton. Not just writing is process over product, but it is one of the clearest ways to define our learning philosophy is this example of writing. So that's how we do writing in a nutshell. Obviously, it varies from studio to studio and age to age, but pretty much the principle is process over product. A lot of practice will make a great writer, but only if they love it and are given permission to create and communicate what's inside as they become a writer over time with practice.